you are the salt of the earth, he knew that our world that we're living have the seeds of rottenness, the seed of corruption. You all know that. The seed of deception. We far less corruption that we have 30 years back. We're dealing with a lot of corruptions. Those who are called, our leaders, you see corruption all over. Jesus saying to his followers in this generation, who knows about him, who follows him, he says, you are the salt of this earth. Look at the context, chapter 5. Jesus is telling to his disciples today, how we live our life. If you are working and outside, if you're working among unbelievers, if those people are in their right mind, they would conduct a environmental study. And if they see you, they are to feel the following. Warning, the salt is nearby. We got to be careful. Warning, there's a Christian around us. We got to be careful. Warning, a righteous man or woman walking by. We got to be careful. Warning, the follower of Jesus Christ is over here. Sadly, Christians blend in to the world. Jesus says, you are the salt of this world. The non-believer needs to find out salt is nearby. I tell you what, when Jesus said in chapter 5, verse 13 and 14, these words are emphatic. When he says, you are the salt of the earth, you are the light of this world, what that means, I'll tell you what emphatic does not mean, and then I'll tell you what emphatic means. When he says, you are the salt of this earth, he means, you can be salt if you want to be. That's not what he meant. He meant, you don't have a choice. You are the salt of the earth, whether you feel like it or not. When he said, you are the light of this world, it doesn't mean that whether you feel up to it or not. Whether you feel up to it, whether you like it or not, you are the salt of this earth. You are the light of this world. You are. Because you are a disciple of Jesus Christ. You know what Jesus' disciples must do today? You can hardly tell those who are disciples or who are not disciples. They're not much different than any others. There's no difference. That's why the world don't see the difference between a Christian and non-Christian. There are 4 basic views of what being salt means. I'm going to tell you all these 4 reasons people believe, and then I'll show you. Those are all good, but I'll tell you what Jesus actually means when he said, you are the salt of this earth. Now there are some commentators says, salt represents the whiteness, the color of the whiteness. It represents the righteousness and purity. The whiteness represents the standards of righteousness. Which, while that is true, as Christians, we need to uphold our values. We need to uphold our purity and righteousness. That's true. Paul says in Colossians chapter 3, verse 5, Paul says, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. That's true. We need to live a pure life. That's what Jesus said and Paul said. Proverbs 21:21 says, whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life. Whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor. We are to uphold the standards of righteousness. But that's not the only thing Jesus is talking about here. When he said the color has nothing to do with the salt. And there are some other commentators says here, the flavor of the salt. Some people think that we are to make our conversation, we are to be a flavorful people into this world. As Christians, we are to be tasty. When people see us, they need to like us. We are to be like flavorful. I don't know how many people that you know that Christians think that they're flavorful. They're so good. They're yummy. I want to be with them. You see, that's what some commentator says. Now, Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, Paul does say this. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. That's what Paul says. But the world never thought Christians are actually flavorful. The world, in fact, they always see us as hypocrites. The world sees us as somebody who they have no fun, no parties. Like Jim said, I party every day. Every time I eat, I party myself. You see, but the world thinks that we're no fun. The world actually thinks, well, I want to be away from Christians. That's why Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 15 and 16, for we are to God the pleasing aroma. And then he goes on to the one, we're an aroma that brings death, to the other, an aroma that brings life. You are an aroma when a person actually coming to God. But a person who is rejecting God, they think you are taken. Paul warned us. Thirdly, another group of people think, some of the commentators says that stinging impact. We are to be like salt, as salt is a stinging impact on the wound. Have you ever done that? We have some old methods in India where I'm growing up. If you have a cut or if you have something goes wrong, they put salt. They believe it heals, which is true. In fact, we are to be a stinging impact into this dying world. We need to talk to people about the righteousness and holiness. We need to teach the world. We need to teach our family. We need to be a stinging impact. We are to rub the world in a wrong way. People want us to live in sin. We are to teach them, no, that's not how God wants us to. That's why Paul says here in 2 Timothy 3:16, all scriptures is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. That means we need to be studying the scriptures so we can teach ourselves and teach others. You know what people do here? A lot of Christians, they like to be a stinging impact. In their effort to be a stinging impact, they become a stinking impact. The people try to we go one extreme to the other extreme. Either we are judgmental or we don't care anymore. We have to have a balance. And the stinging impact, number 3. Number 4, some people say that we are to create thirst for God. When we talk to people, we need to create a thirst for God like salt creates thirst for water. Which is really true. Which we are to do that. We are to create a thirst for people. How do we do that? With our conversation, with our character being upright with God. In fact, medically, I'm told with the proper percentage of salt. If we don't have proper percentage of salt in our body actually goes in a dehydrate mode and dies. So we need to be. All these 4 impacts are good. I agree with them. But the main impact that I don't want you to miss today, the main purpose of Jesus describing the description of being salt, to preserve culture, preserve society. That is what salt used in those days. They preserve. You are the salt of the earth. Not possibly, not maybe, or not you can be if you want to. But you are. You have no choice.